Hi, I'm Mare MacArthur, curator of the exhibition SHIKI, The Four Seasons in Japanese Art. The exhibition is currently at the Williamson Gallery and features Japanese art from the collection of Scripps College. It includes paintings, woodblock prints, porcelains, cloisonné enamels, and kimonos and accessories, all of which feature motifs representing each of the four seasons. We hope you enjoy this virtual tour of the exhibition, and we're looking forward to seeing you in the gallery again soon. Japanese have always revered the natural world for its beauty and power. For over 1,000 years, a rich vocabulary relating to nature and the four seasons has evolved in literature and art. Beloved flowers, plants, and birds in particular have been used to represent each season and the emotions and moods associated with them. Much of this vocabulary was created within the context of traditional Japanese poetry, beginning with waka, an early form of poetry that was practiced by members of the imperial court from around the 7th century AD. The natural world features prominently in waka poetry, although the nature represented is idealized and used to imply human thoughts and feelings. Seasonal words and seasonal themes are used in these poems and are understood by both poets and readers for their emotional meaning. For example, cherry blossoms, or sakura in Japanese, evoke spring and the fleeting nature of life. The cry of the cuckoo, or hototogisu, announces the arrival of summer and a longing for love. The autumn moon, aki no tsuki, and wild geese, kari, suggest the melancholy of autumn, and snow, yuki, and pine trees, matsu, convey winter hardships and endurance. Traditionally, these motifs have featured in paintings displayed in homes, palaces, castles, and tea rooms, but they've also been used on kimonos worn for special occasions, and ceramics and other vessels used to serve seasonal meals. Their presence has deepened the connection between the owner and each of the seasons. Spring. In Japan, spring is a favorite season since it arrives after the bitter cold of wintertime. Traditionally, spring began at the Lunar New Year, the first day of the first month, and finished at the end of the third month, so roughly February 4th to May 4th. According to poetic and artistic conventions, early spring is the time when snow melts, ice thaws, and spring mist descends on the landscape. The bush warbler, or uguisu, a small sparrow-like bird, returns from its winter hideaway and starts to sing, heralding warmer weather to come. In this early 19th century print, the artist Hokke gives us a view from the inside of a room, through two small windows, out into the garden. Through the window frame, we can see a flowering plum tree, and perching on one of its branches is a bush warbler. In Japanese art and poetry, the blossoming plum and the song of the bush warbler are auspicious motifs signaling the end of the winter and the beginning of spring. There are several flowers and trees associated with spring in Japan, but of all of them, the cherry blossom is the most beloved. The climax of spring in Japan is the blooming of the cherry blossoms, and for centuries, people have enjoyed hanami, or cherry blossom viewing, as a spring pastime. Every year, people gather with friends and families to picnic under the blooming trees and enjoy their beauty. To the Japanese, the fullness of branches laden with pale pink flowers, followed by the scattering of their petals, serves as a reminder of the transience of life and of the importance of savoring every moment. In the 10th century, the poet Kino Tsurayuki wrote a poem speaking directly to these delicate and beautiful flowers and lamenting their short lives. Kotoshi yori haru shirisomuru sakura bana chiru toyu koto wa nara wa zararan. O cherry blossoms, who have just this year begun to understand spring, would that you never learn what it means to scatter. These ephemeral blossoms are one of the most widely depicted motifs in Japanese art. This vase by Ando Jubei depicts a cherry tree in full bloom, along with a willow tree, another symbol of spring. The jar is decorated with cloisonné enamels, a technique in which slender metal wires are attached to a bronze or copper vessel to form enclosures called cloisons. These enclosures form the outlines of patterns like the cherry and willow tree here, and are filled with colored powdered enamels, and then fired to melt the enamels into a glass-like finish. With this complex technique that uses metal and glass, Ando has skillfully captured the beauty and delicacy of these exquisite flowers. Another flower associated with springtime is the wisteria, or Fuji in Japanese. Wisteria is a vine native to East Asia, and in Japan its flowers typically bloom from late April to early May. As well as the season of spring, the flowers also symbolize love, longing, and endurance, probably because of the strong attachment the wisteria vines form on other trees, trellises, and structures such as balconies. In this print, we see a court lady standing on a veranda, gazing into the distance, perhaps dreaming of being with a loved one. In the foreground, a wisteria vine leans towards the veranda, suggesting a loving embrace. The purple of her outer kimono perfectly matches the hue of the wisteria blossoms. Summer. Summer is not the most pleasant time of year in Japan. It's generally intensely hot and humid, with periods of heavy monsoon rains. In the traditional calendar, it extended from the 4th month through the 6th month, so from around May 5th to August 6th. Just as the bush warbler heralds the start of spring, the cuckoo signals the arrival of summer. The cuckoo, or hototogisu, has a sharp cry that is associated poetically with longing, either for a lover or a hometown. In this print by Hiroshige, the bird flies above the main hall of the Komakata Temple in Edo, modern Tokyo. The image alludes to a famous poem written by a courtesan, who is alone waiting for her lover to return, and hears the piercing cry of the cuckoo, which reminds her of her love. Unlike spring, which invites people outdoors to enjoy the blossoming trees and fresh greenery, summer is a hot and uncomfortable season to be outdoors, so it is not featured as prominently in Japanese poetry or visual arts. When it has been the subject of poetry or paintings, the theme has often focused on the coolness that comes from a refreshing breeze or the evening air, as in this 19th century haiku by Kobayashi Issa. Suzukaze ya chikara ippai kirigirisu. Refreshing breeze with all his strength, the cricket. In scenes of the summertime in woodblock prints, we often see young women fanning themselves with flat paper fans, often in the evening when temperatures are lower, or gathering by the riverside or seashore. There are several flowers associated with summer in Japan. Early summer is often suggested by deep purple irises which grow in swampy areas and are associated with the 8th century courtier and poet Ariwara no Narihira, who was banished from the capital and composed a poem about these flowers to express his longing for home. Irises can appear in a range of colors. These two small cloisonné enamel vases are just over 4 inches in height, but they feature the exceptional craftsmanship of the turn of the 20th century. In these vases, the contrast between the deep black ground and the white of the iris flowers is particularly striking, suggesting that we are viewing these elegant flowers by the light of the moon. Another flower associated with the summertime in Japan is the peony, a full, multi-petaled flower that is also associated with feminine beauty. This print of peonies by Utagawa Sadatora was probably designed to be made into a flat fan that would have been used by a woman to keep cool in the hot, muggy summer months. In traditional Chinese symbolism, the peony has long been considered the king of flowers, and it is often painted with the lion, the king of beasts. This large dish from the ceramic kilns of Arita in Kyushu features peonies and lions drawn in underglazed cobalt blue on white porcelain. Because of the association of the flower with summer, this dish would probably be used in the summertime in Japan. However, its large size suggests that it was made for export to Europe, where large porcelain platters were popular and would have been used all year round. We also see heavy rain as a motif representing the summertime in Japanese art. Japan has a rainy season during June and early July. Although the monsoon rains provide some relief from the oppressive heat of the summer, they can be overpowering, forcing people indoors and often resulting in serious flooding. This famous print by Hiroshige depicts pedestrians caught in a summer downpour as they cross a bridge in Edo. Hiroshige's strong sense of composition and his ability to design printed rain so that we can almost feel it lashing down on us has made this print one of his most admired images. and it inspired Vincent van Gogh to create a copy in oils 30 years later. Autumn. Autumn has always been the most popular season for poets and artists, since this is the time of year when temperatures cool, outdoor activities resume, and the colours of nature are at their most dramatic. Crimson maples and ginkgo leaves vie with evergreens like pine and bamboo against a bright blue, cloudless sky. The season has traditionally extended from the 7th month to the 9th month, so from around August 7th to November 6th. The season includes the rice harvest and festivals such as the Star Festival, Tanabata, on the 7th day of the 7th month, and the annual rite of viewing the harvest moon, or Meigetsu, in the middle of the 8th month. Just as cherry blossom viewing is popular in the spring, moon viewing, or tsukimi, is a highlight of the autumn. The full harvest moon appears in many prints and paintings depicting this season. The autumn moon can be a source of joy because it is associated with the rice harvest and a time of abundance. This moon is apparent in the waka poem by Otagaki Rengetsu, a 19th century Buddhist nun and poet. No ni yama ni ukare ukarete kaeru sa o ne yama de okuru aki no yo no tsuki. Across the fields and hills, my spirits buoyed with joy, I return to my bedroom, accompanied by tonight's autumn moon. However, in many poems and works of art, the moon conveys a more melancholy mood, particularly when it's paired with autumn plants and grasses or wild geese. In this print by Kunisada II, we see a scene from the literary classic The Tale of Genji, reenacted by characters, often kabuki actors or courtesans, from the 19th century. Genji's son Yugiri is standing on a pleasure boat on the river, staring wistfully at the wild geese flying past the full autumn moon. At this point in the story, Genji's wife, the third princess, has been seduced by Kashiwagi, who then died of grief for having offended Genji. Kashiwagi had been Yugiri's best friend, so Yugiri felt obliged to care for his friend's widow. In this scene, Yugiri returns home after visiting the widow, and as he sees geese descending into the mist, he thinks, "No shadows now of them whom I once knew. Only the autumn moon to guard the waters." In much Japanese literature and art, although autumn is a time of vivid colors, as the season progresses, there's a sense that winter is again approaching. This ushers in a melancholy mood that is often conveyed in paintings and prints of people gazing up at the full moon. Among the flowers and plants of autumn, red maple leaves, or momiji, are the most popular motif, either in a burst of crimson foliage on trees or floating on the surface of rivers such as the Tatsuta River in Kyoto. This exquisite painting depicts Genji from the Tale of Genji, visiting his lover in a rustic house. The season is clearly autumn, not just because of the red maple leaves on trees and ground, but also because of the full moon and the autumn grasses lining the property, all of which are signifiers of the season. The artist has not yet been identified, but he worked in the Tosa style, the native Japanese style of painting used to depict scenes from Heian period literature and the Heian court. The lines are very fine, mineral pigments are applied densely in certain areas, and scenes are often shown from above, from a bird's eye point of view. Autumn leaves are a very popular motif on ceramics, kimonos, and many of the accessories worn during this season too. On this comb made of lacquered wood, the design of maple leaves has been created by sprinkling gold and other metallic powders onto the lacquer when it was still wet, a technique known as makie, or sprinkled pictures. The effect is very classical and would have been subtle when the comb was inserted into the traditional updo of a young woman in the 19th century. Not so subtle is this dramatic comb made in the early 20th century. It features chrysanthemums, the favorite flower of autumn in Japan. This comb was formed with a mold out of plastic, probably bakelite, and then painted a vibrant red in imitation of red lacquer, with details in mother of pearl affixed with an adhesive. Although plastic is a cheap, ubiquitous material today, in the 1920s and 30s it was still an exciting and modern material that was quite a luxury in Japan. These flowers are one of the natural highlights of the season and are enjoyed in parks and gardens in many parts of Japan. and they're bred in a wide range of colors, from yellow and white to various shades of pink. This colorful print, made in 1926 by Ohara Shoson, depicts pink and yellow chrysanthemums hanging over a winding river, an image that very vividly evokes the crisp coolness that this season can bring. Winter. Winter can be a severe season in Japan, characterized by cold, frost, and snow, particularly in northern Honshu and Hokkaido. Traditionally, the season extends from the 10th to 12th month of the lunar calendar, so from about November 7th to February 3rd. Its harsh conditions made it a relatively unpopular season among earlier Japanese courtiers and poets, who regarded it as cold and lonely. The famous 17th century haiku poet Matsuo Basho captures the bleakness of winter in the following haiku. Fuyugare ya, yo wa isshoku ni kaze no oto. Winter solitude, in a world of one color, the sound of wind. In art, however, snowy landscapes were popular themes in monochrome ink paintings, folding screens, and woodblock prints. This two-panel screen features plants and birds of winter. Here we can see two white cranes, birds that represent the wintertime, in a snowy landscape with bamboo, sparrows, and camellias, all painted onto a ground of gold leaf. Often these motifs are depicted individually or in pairs, like cranes and pine trees, or sparrows and bamboo. But here we see several motifs together to create an idyllic scene of nature in the wintertime. Although white is the predominant color of winter scenes, here the red camellias peeking through bamboo and sprinkled with snow provide some dramatic color accents. Winter landscapes were very popular in woodblock prints. This winter landscape by Hiroshige depicts a snowy scene in the town of Kambara in Suruga province, very close to the foot of Mount Fuji. The scene was executed almost entirely in shades of black, with white areas left for snow. The black night sky, speckled with falling snowflakes, was rendered using the bokashi technique, in which some ink was wiped off the block to create tonal gradation. This scene of profound silence on a winter night is considered by many to be one of Hiroshige's finest designs. Yet it was apparently created entirely from Hiroshige's imagination, as the artist is known to have traveled to this town during the summer, so could not have seen Kambara covered in snow. Winter scenes full of people were also very popular in the woodblock prints of the 19th century. Many artists designed views of lovely young women with patterned kimonos, contrasting with the white of the snow, and of various characters from legend and contemporary society walking or playing in the pure white landscape. The pine tree is the quintessential tree of winter. Since it is evergreen and thrives during the cold winter months, it symbolizes resilience and longevity, and along with the bamboo and plum, is one of the three friends of winter. This small container, called an inro, would have been suspended from the obi, the sash tied around the kimono, and was probably used to hold medicine. It is coated in black lacquer and decorated with a gold makie design of pine branches, with the cones at the end of each branch formed with inlaid mother of pearl. Like the pine tree, plum blossoms also symbolize wintertime, since plum trees flower in the cold. This spectacular cloisonné vase was made by the artist Kawade Shibataro, one of the major cloisonné artists of the turn of the last century. Kawade completely covered the surface of the vase with a design of white plum blossoms against a dark sky. Although the overall palette is black and white, a network of finely textured brown and green branches adds depth and structure to the overall composition. The drama and energy of this vase celebrates the hardy plum blossoms and its message of hope and light at the darkest time of the year. Four kimonos in the center. Many of the prints, paintings, ceramics, and cloisonné enamels that we have seen in this exhibition would have been displayed or used in the home during the seasons indicated by the motifs. Seasonal motifs are also an important element in kimono design. In the center of the exhibition are four kimono, one for each of the seasons, each made in fabric appropriate to the season and decorated with birds and flowers. Spring. The delicate design of cherry blossoms that have been hand-painted onto this silk crepe kimono evokes the ephemeral blooming of the sakura, Japan's most beloved flower. Summer. This summer kimono is made with a gauze-like silk called sha, which has a very open weave in order to allow air to pass through the cloth. Though the fabric is black, it is decorated with a refreshing summer motif of swirling water and wild carnations, or nadeshiko in Japanese. Autumn. This elegant silk crepe kimono features designs of maple leaves on the shoulders, floating on a black ground, evoking the maple leaves that float on Kyoto's famous Tatsuta River in the autumn. Winter. This outer kimono features the most popular symbols of winter: the pine, bamboo, and plum. Pine is an evergreen, bamboo bends with the wind, while the plum blossoms in cold temperatures. Collectively, pine, bamboo, and plum are known as the three friends of winter, or shochikubai in Japanese.